Today we will be talking about the various types of pollution, legislative framework, and about the conservation of environment. The various types of pollution we face on day-to-day life are water pollution, air pollution, noise pollution, soil pollution, even the pollution from the industrial hazardous waste, pollution from municipal solid waste, pollution due to electronic waste, pollution due to plastic waste. As we all know that when we produce anything, we generate lot of pollutants, which may be in the form of gaseous pollutants, which may be in the form of chemicals being discharged with water, which we term as wastewater. Once we treat this wastewater, we remove all these chemicals in form of sludge, and this sludge is normally the industrial hazardous sludge or industrial hazardous solid waste. Secondly, during the various production activities, we see, for example, when we produce an automobile, we paint them. Normally during the painting activity, lot of paint is being wasted. This waste paint solidifies and it forms a industrial hazardous waste, as it contains lot of heavy metals, and it can pose a big threat to environment. Secondly, as we all know, that municipal solid waste, which is being generated from the day-to-day activity of every individual, whatever we eat, the peelings of the vegetables or the food left out of eating, or even the packing and the wrapping of the material normally we buy from the market and all, this all type of waste is being categorized and comes under municipal solid waste. So all these various pollutants pollute the environment to a very, very large extent, and now we all are facing the problem posed by various types of pollutants. In the year 1972, UN held a big conference in Sweden in June 1972. Various countries from members of the UN attended that conference, and at that time the Prime Minister of our country, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, attended with her team this conference, and after coming back from that conference, she also thought that there should be a regulatory framework to curb and to control this pollution. Normally in the mid-60s and 70s, we see that mostly at that time lot of industrial activities has taken up in our country also. Large developmental projects, infrastructure projects like Bhakra Nangal Dam, big power plants, Bhilai Steel Plant, Vizag plant, all such big industrial activities took place in our country during the mid-60s and 70s. This all industrial activities, along with them, brought lot of wastewater also, because once we carry out all this industrial activity, lot of wastewater is generated, and in this wastewater lot of various chemicals are there, various bacterial contamination are there, which is posing a big threat to the human environment and to human health. Then accordingly, in the 1974, Government of India has formulated a rule by the name of the Water Act.
Water Act 1974 is an act to provide for the prevention and control of water pollution and the maintaining or restoring of wholesomeness of water for the establishment with a view to carrying out the purposes aforesaid of boards for the prevention and control of water pollution, for conferring on and assigning to such boards powers and functions relating thereto, and for matters connected therewith.
Accordingly, to implement this act, government has decided to form a state and central pollution control board, which will act as a regulatory authority to monitor and to control the water pollution. Also, along with the formation of pollution control boards, the government has decided various norms under this act to monitor the quality of wastewater and to decide that this particular wastewater is polluting or not. Then accordingly, mainly 5 to 6 various parameters were decided, like pH, then TDS, total suspended solid, total dissolved solids, BOD, COD, oil and grease. Initially these were the 5-6 parameters, and the limits were set that if any industry or any establishment who is doing any activity or generating wastewater, if the wastewater discharge from their unit is well within the prescribed limits set under the Water Act, then accordingly all this activity will be told as that, it will be defined as that they are following the norms laid in the Water Pollution Act. And if they exceeds the limit set into this act, then it is established that the industry is polluting the environment, because water pollution not only pollutes the water bodies, it pollutes the soil also, it pollutes the nearby habitats and everybody. It may cause various, because once the water pollution is polluted water is there or wastewater is there, it apart from chemicals, it is a breeding ground for bacteria, and this bacterial contamination causes lot of diseases. So it is very important to take care of water pollution. Now we will talk about the air pollution and the legislation framework formulated to control the air pollution. In the mid say 70s and 80s, the industrial activities and urbanization both grow at a very fast pace. Due to the rapid urbanization and industrialization, lot of gaseous emissions were emitted into the atmosphere, and which was the major cause for air pollution. Also, with urbanization, the number of vehicles increased like anything. These vehicles also generate lot of gaseous emissions which pollute the atmosphere. Looking into the severity of the problem, in the 1981, Government of India formulated the Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1981.
The Air Act 1981 is an act to provide for the prevention, control and abatement of air pollution, for the establishment with a view to carrying out the aforesaid purposes of boards, for conferring on and assigning to such boards powers and functions relating thereto, and for matters connected therewith.
Under this act, again the Central Pollution Control Board and the State Pollution Control Board were defined as the regulatory authorities who will take care for the regulatory and legislative framework of the rule. Under this Air Pollution and Prevention Act, some penal provisions were also being incorporated into the legislation framework, and some norms were set for various types of pollutants, namely carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxides, oxides of nitrogen, particulate matter and volatile organic carbons. We can say any activity or any establishment or any industrial activity who emits the gaseous pollutants or the gases, or whose emission level are well within the prescribed limits for various pollutants, then we can say that this industry is working as per the norm of the Air Act and are following the provisions made in the Air Act. But if in any case any industry is not following the prescribed limits mentioned in the Act, so then it is categorized into a defaulter unit, or we can say it is an industry or it is an establishment which is polluting the environment. Under this Act, the penal provisions are like this, that any person or any individual or establishment or a operator of an industry pollutes the environment or don't follow the prescribed limits or regulatory mentioned in the regulatory framework, then there is a provision of imprisonment of 3 months or a fine of rupees 1 lakh or both, and for those establishments or organizations who don't follow the rules on a continuous basis, then there is a penal provision of rupees 5,000 maximum to a rupees 5,000 per day. Once these penal provisions were intact into this act and a legislative framework was given, then thereafter the Pollution Control Board and the Central Pollution Control Board start taking action against the defaulting industries or the organizations. In the year 1984, as we all have heard and aware of the Bhopal gas tragedy, it took place on the 2nd of December 1984. Basically, a pesticide manufacturing unit by the name of Union Carbide was functioning at Bhopal, and there was a leakage of MIC gas. MIC means methyl isocyanide, and due to the leakage of that gas, thousands of people died on that night. It was one of the biggest ever tragedy, environmental tragedy, due to any industrial air pollution occurred in the world. It is one of the biggest tragedy of the world. So the government of India thought of that now it is necessary to frame such a legislation which not only covers the water and air, which covers the each and every aspect of the environment, like the soil pollution or noise pollution or any other type of pollution. So in 1986, government formulated the Environmental Protection Act.
The Environment Protection Act 1986 is an act to provide for the protection and improvement of environment and for the matters connected therewith. Subject to the provisions of this act, the central government shall have the power to take all such measures as it deems necessary or expedient for the purpose of protecting and improving the quality of environment and preventing, controlling and abating environmental pollution.
This act is a very generalized act which covers almost all the aspects of environment, whatever they are, and if any individual or any entity or any organization or any industrial organization or unit or even the government organizations, if they commit any default against the environment or if they pollute the environment without concerning about the pollution they are making and they are damaging the environment, then a penal action can be taken against anybody under this act. Under this act, again the penal provisions are very stringent and very strong. There is a provision of 7 year, maximum 7 year imprisonment and a fine of rupees 1 lakh or both, and for those who don't follow it on a regular basis, means even after giving warnings, if somebody pollutes the environment, then there is a provision of making fine of maximum rupees 5,000 per day for a duration till they are not following the norms. So this Environmental Protection Act was a very big step taken by the government to curb the pollution and to safeguard the environment. Thereafter, the government has to control various industrial activities or various even the activities being done by the local bodies, because as we normally we think of that the industries are the one who generates the pollution or who creates the lot of wastewater or lot of gaseous emissions, but when we go into the details of this pollution, we see it is the responsibility of local bodies also to control the wastewater pollution being generated, the domestic wastewater being generated from every individual's household, and to treat it as per the norms. Also, it is the responsibility of local bodies to take care of the municipal solid waste being generated in their area. Then thereafter, accordingly, under this Environmental Protection Act, many rules were framed for various type of pollutants. Now, First of all, let me take what are the various types of rules for various things and various materials being made under this Environmental Protection Act. Also for industries particularly, under this Environmental Protection Act, a EIA notification was brought and it was made enforcement in the year 1984. Again, this EIA notification act was amended in 1989 and again it was amended in 2003. Under this environmental impact assessment notification, various types of large industries which may create a large amount of pollution are identified, and they were asked to carry out a environmental impact assessment study prior to setting up of their unit. Under this environmental impact assessment study, this study is normally carried out for a year duration, wherein all the types of environmental pollution threats which may be posed by that particular unit are monitored, are being assessed and analyzed, and thereafter the positive and negative impacts of that particular industry or a unit in that area is assessed. Accordingly, government gives consent or authorization to that industry to carry out the industrial activity in future also. Otherwise, government may tell that industry to shut down the industrial activity in that particular area. Basically, this Environmental Protection Act 1986 is a very big umbrella act, and thereafter, as the Government of India, Ministry of Environmental and Forest found that various rules were needed to control other new types of pollution being generated in this society. Then thereafter, accordingly, under Environmental Protection Act, first of all, in 1989, the hazardous waste management and handling rules were framed. These rules were framed for control, prevention and abatement of the hazardous waste being generated in industries. Also, these rules apply to every other organizations also who generate hazardous waste. Normally, even these electronic manufacturing units or in a office or in a organization where lots of electronic is used, the waste electronic parts or components comes under hazardous waste, and they are covered under Hazardous Waste Management and Handling Rules 1989. These rules were amended in the year 2000, 2003 and finally in the year 2008. Normally the amendments were made for the import of various hazardous chemicals or hazardous material in our country. In 90s, we have faced the problem of dumping of hazardous waste in our country by the developed countries. They used to send their hazardous waste to our country, and many such small industries emerged who extract metals or various other type of chemical from this waste and carry out their business activities. But it was found that the amount of material extracted or the chemical extracted from this waste is very less. Then thereafter government finally made the amended rule in the year 2008 by the name of Hazardous Waste Management, Handling and Transboundary Movement Rules. And under these rules, the import or dumping of hazardous chemicals in our country by the developed countries was stopped. As due to urbanization, as we see, a lot of medical facilities or healthcare units came up in the urban areas. Normally, all these healthcare units generate lot of waste during the diagnosis, during the immunization, or during the we can say the operations or surgeries and all these activities. Lot of waste is generated and it was thrown away with the municipal waste. This normally this biomedical waste is a big threat to the human health and environment. Looking into the seriousness of the matter, in the 1998 Government of India formulated the Biomedical Waste Management and Handling Rules under the Environmental Protection Act. and then in the year 2000 these rules were amended and the concept of common biomedical waste treatment and disposal facilities were introduced. Again in the year 2000, government felt that in urban areas lot of municipal waste is being generated and which is dumped here and there without any treatment and disposal. So in the year 2000, government formulated, Ministry of Environment and Forest, Government of India formulated the Municipal Waste Management and Handling Rules 2000. Under these rules, all the local bodies were asked to treat and dispose of their municipal solid waste in environmental safe manner using various technologies, and if they don't manage or treat the waste, the deadline was also set by the Honorable Supreme Court of India for setting up of the treatment and disposal facilities. So they were asked to dispose of the municipal waste as per the norms. In 2006, it was felt that lot of this battery waste, lead batteries being used in various activities, even in vehicles or various types of activities, the usage of battery has increased like anything, and once the usage of anything increases, the discarded material of that particular type of batteries and all also increase like anything. And normally these batteries are lead batteries. As we all know that lead is one of a very hazardous heavy metal which causes environmental degradation, which even is a threat to human health also. So looking into the seriousness of the problem, in the year 2006, government formulated the Batteries Management and Handling Rules 2006. In the year 2008, government formulated the rules for treatment and disposal of plastic. In the 2008, the draft rules were formulated. In the 2010, the final rules were made, and now all these rules are applicable. As we all know that plastic has increased, the usage of plastic has increased in last 30-40 years many folds, and the plastic, as we all know, it does not degrade. So if once we throw away the plastic, it is lying there for years and years. So looking into the seriousness of the plastic waste problem, government formulated the rules by the name of the Plastic Management and Handling Rules. In the year 2010, as with urbanization and increased use of electronics in our day-to-day life, now lot of e-waste is being generated in our country. So in the year 2010, Government of India, Ministry of Environment and Forest formulated the e-waste management and handling rules, and all these rules from hazardous to e-waste are covered under the umbrella of the Environmental Protection Act. So whatever the legislative or the penal provisions are there in the Environmental Protection Act, that all penal provisions are applicable under to these rules also. So whosoever, if defaults under this rule, is being covered by the penal provisions of the Environmental Protection Act 1986. Basically, as we all know, with rapid urbanization, we are also disturbing the wildlife and forest. We are cutting the forest, we are disturbing the wildlife like anything. So looking into the problem, in the year 1972, Government of India formulated the Wildlife Protection Act.
The Wildlife Act 1972 is an act to provide for the protection of wild animals, birds and plants, and for matters connected therewith or ancillary or incidental thereto.
Under this act, hunting of wildlife and particularly the endangered species of many wildlife, whose a big list is there, were prohibited, that the hunting of all these animals or wildlife is protected under this Wildlife Protection Act, and a legislative framework was given. Penal provisions are there. Even the many penal provisions of Indian Penal Code are taking care of Wildlife Protection Act. So in this Wildlife Protection Act, there is a special provision that particularly if anybody kills the national bird or national animal, then the penal provisions will be as good as killing a human being. So very stringent penal provisions are made for killing and hunting of these animals. In the year 2002, these rules were amended, and a new big list of many animals and endangered species were published, and hunting of all these animals are prohibited under this act. For regulatory framework, Forest Department of the Government of India and the state forest departments were made as regulatory authorities to monitor and to control this and to make cases against the person who are involved in hunting and all. So Forest Department is the regulatory agency for this Wildlife Protection Act. As we all know, due to urbanization also and due to need of wood in our day-to-day life, we are cutting forest like anything. Initially in the 1920, the Forest Act was made, and thereafter it was amended many times.
Forest Conservation Act 1980 is an act to provide for the conservation of forests and for matters connected therewith, or ancillary or incidental thereto.
In year 2002, government has formulated the Forest Conservation Act. Under this Forest Conservation Act, nobody is allowed to make any habitation or any industrial activity or any type of activity in the forest areas. Government notified the forests areas, government notified the species of trees and plant even in non-notified areas also. Without the prior permission of government, no plants can be cut, and under this Forest Conservation Act, Forest Department, Government of India and State Forest Department were made as the regulatory agency to monitor that the forests are being maintained, and nobody can develop any industrial unit or can develop any habitation within the notified forest area. For even in non-notified area, the concerned collector of that district is made responsible for monitoring the cutting of trees and all, and he was made responsible, the collector is made responsible to look into and to take penal actions and to form a case against all who are prohibiting the law and who are not following the law. So these are the two again very important acts which take care of environment and which are more concerned with the conservation of the environment than the pollution. So now all these 4 or 5 acts forms the complete acts which are needed for the protection of environment and for the control of pollution. I think now it is the duty of all of us and every individual that now all the acts pertaining to environmental protection, to control of pollution, for wildlife management, for protection, conservation of the forest are there in place. Now it is the duty of every individual to bring awareness and to go through and to have a deep knowledge of all these acts and rules, so that we can control the pollution, we can conserve our forest, we can conserve our wildlife. I think it is necessary and it is high time that now, as we are a growing country, we should fight against pollution and we should control it. If we find anywhere that any pollution taking activities are going on, we should report it to the administration, we should report it to the concerned pollution control boards, and that way we can play a big role in controlling the pollution, and that way we can conserve our environment.